Hello there my Jedi and Sith friends, and welcome back to another Star Wars video. It is I coming at you once again, your friend and your favourite galactic hostess, Star Wars Meg, and today we have an array of very big Star Wars updates. This is going to be a very interesting one because we're following up on something which I spoke about a year ago, and it concerns the Mandoverse. It's been a hot minute since we spoke about the Mandalorian and Grogu, mainly because I think I've said everything I needed to. I shared with you my honest opinions, my full review, we spoke about some theories, broke down a couple of scenes, a couple of cool character parallels, and of course, the unfortunate box office numbers. But today, my friends, Lucasfilm has answered a question we've had pretty much since 2024. After the late great Carl Weathers passed away, we were wondering what is going to become of the character of Greef Karga. Because some of the early rumors said that we were going back to Navarro for the movie, and we actually did, I assumed in some way, shape or form his fate was going to be addressed. But it wasn't. I think the general assumption was that they were going to kill him off in-universe, that they'd build him some kind of statue on Navarro, or if they felt that was too mawkish, they could explain that he's off-world on a diplomatic mission. But regardless, I think we expected some kind of acknowledgement, and lo and behold, mostly because he wasn't really relevant to the movie, it never came. Now, in all fairness, while they didn't address the character of Greef Karga himself, there was a little nod to Carl Weathers on Shikari. In Arabesh, it was written, Weathers Apollo. This was in the scene where the Dedrick monsters got out. Weathers, in reference to the actor's last name, and Apollo relates to Apollo Creed, the character he plays in the Rocky franchise. But nothing was explicitly said about Greef. At least until today, my friends. Lucasfilm has finally answered what happens to him after The Mandalorian Season 3, and it turns out they've opted not to kill the character off. Despite Carl Weathers' tragic death, the character himself lives on. And to be honest, given the state of the Mandoverse at the moment, that might not be the worst decision in the world, because if for the time being the Mandalorian TV show is on hiatus, then I suppose there's no reason for the character to be killed off. And how do we know this? Thanks to the upcoming Mandalorian and Grogu tie-in comic, Danger in the Dark. This is releasing in a couple of days' time, and in the preview, guess who makes a cameo? Greef Karga. And this is set between Season 3 and the movie. And if we give the preview pages just a quick skim, the Magistrate, or should I say the High Magistrate, visits Din and Grogu at their cabin. Greef Karga desperately needs Mando's help, and this is in regards to the aftermath of the attack from Gorian Shard. It was a victory for the Mandos, but despite shooting down most of their ships, while doing scans in the underground lava tubes, Greef discovered that one of the fallen ships contains live ordnance, several armed torpedoes. So he asks Din and Grogu to go down there, retrieve them, and disarm them. But the good news, my friends, is that Greef Karga for the time being is alive and well. If The Mandalorian returns for a 4th season, then I suppose they might have to actually address why he's not in the show. Again, they could explain his absence without fully killing off the character. They could just say he went on a mission to Coruscant to have a meeting with the New Republic, or Chandrilla, or somewhere else. But I guess the reason Lucasfilm decided to do this is because they know The Mandalorian in TV show form is probably not coming back for a very long time. And so, they probably figured it was inappropriate to confirm his in-universe death in a comic book, and because they didn't address it in the movie, they probably said to themselves, if we don't have to do it, we won't. And I personally think that's for the best. And to this end, it's also worth pointing out that in the behind the scenes for The Mandalorian and Grogu, the Mandalorian TV show is referred to as running from 2019 to 2023. In the past, they just wrote 2019 to present. Does this imply the end of The Mandalorian on the small screen? Will any follow-ups to The Mandalorian and Grogu also be on the big screen? It could mean nothing. It could just be the dates of the series so far with no further implications. But even if it is the end of The Mandalorian as we know it, there is no way they're done with these characters. There is no way we don't see Grogu again, whatever form that's gonna take. But for the moment, I think they've just been put on the shelf. What do you guys think? In other news that pertains to The Mandalorian and Grogu, another character who's just made his way into the comics is Hugo Durant, the street food vendor voiced by Martin Scorsese. The comic is Galaxy's Edge: Echoes of the Empire. Now, I'm not gonna lie to you, compared to some other series, I've never been the biggest fan of the Galaxy's Edge comics. This one is set during the sequel era, but the flashbacks are just after episode 6. And after the Battle of Endor, Hugo has a run-in with Han Solo, who's actually heard of his famous food and wants to try the famous meat fry. It's an interesting little story. Again, isn't of too much consequence, but there you go. A character from the new movie making his way into the comics. But moving on to our next Star Wars update, we're going to be sticking with the Mandoverse for just one more segment. We have some more Ahsoka Season 2 leaks thanks to our good friend Morai the Messenger. In a new tidbit, they shared that Ahsoka Season 2 has stunt performers who are credited as Blue Commandos, and other performers carried what they called blunderbuss weapons. Starting with the commando role, they say that these guys might look similar to the Stormtrooper commanders from The Force Unleashed, and they might be there alongside the undead night troopers that Thrawn has on Dathomir. These might have been recruited by Pelion. But now let's talk about the new weapon. This is pretty big. They say they remind them of the Donderbus pistols. These were first introduced in The Force Awakens. They were favoured by members of Kanji Club. Do you remember Kanji Club? They're the ones who confronted Han Solo. They were a notorious criminal organisation that operated in the Outer Rim. They were led by Street Fighter Tazu Leech. Now, while I don't know if there's going to be a literal connection to Kanji Club, these pistols do look rather pirate-like, and the Mandoverse so far has had an abundance of pirates. And it should be noted, the Stormtrooper Commanders and the Blunderbuss pistols are not connected. One group of stunt performers had the pistols, and the others were designated Blue Commandos. Just a cool couple of tidbits. I love little breadcrumbs, little pieces of information like this, because when we see the show itself, we can point out what these were in reference to. And so finally, my dear friends, this one is rather different. Yet another Star Wars record has been smashed. Exactly a month ago it came out that Jurassic World Dominion, not the newer one, but the one from 2022, overtook The Force Awakens as the most expensive movie of all time. Well, today guys, the record in question relates to the London BFI IMAX opening weekend box office. For 9 whole years, Star Wars The Last Jedi held the record with a 3-day gross of £216,454 British pounds. But now, Christopher Nolan's The Odyssey has just about clinched it with 219,000, which translates to just under 300 grand American. And this 3-day gross is from a single screen. And look, I mainly just talk about Star Wars on this channel, but I'm very well aware of pop culture news and pop culture discourse, and it's true that The Odyssey was littered with a lot of online backlash, whether it was to do with the casting choices or the lingo that was used, but it turns out the movie is still very popular and got pretty decent reviews. I for one quite enjoyed it. It's nowhere near Nolan's best work, but it was actually quite an enjoyable and moving flick, and it's just been able to smash a pretty niche, but I would say still significant Star Wars record. And The Hollywood Reporter have added that in order to see the film at the BFI in London, cinemagoers travelled from as far afield as Singapore, Los Angeles and Toronto. Now that is dedication. But with that said, my dear friends, that wraps up today's Star Wars news. What do you guys think? Share your thoughts on all of it in the comments down below. And if you enjoyed this one, please be sure to give me a big fat thumbs up, subscribe if you're new, and may the Force be with you always.